All right, welcome back to Changing Lives, Changing Worlds, the conscious evolution, the art of conscious evolution. And today, my guest and my dear friend, Faye, has joined me. Thank you, Faye. Thanks for being here and sharing all your wisdom and your wonderful stories, I'm sure that we'll hear.
Thank you very much for having me, Joel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Faye, Naomi-Grace Lewis, did I get that right?
That's correct.
All
Yes.
right. uh, is a Lightbody practitioner, a divine healer, and a soul contract reader. Okay, so she's coming from a little, well, not so outside of the norm, right? I've practiced two of the three, so I'm familiar with two of them. That's actually where we met, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
training. Um, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Faye.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too.
so, what I always ask a little bit about qualifications and area of work, and Faye gave me so much here. I'm going to actually read it just so I don't miss anything. So, Faye works across multiple disciplines, including but not absolutely not limited to the karmic matrix reabsorptions, which is equivalent to taking the red pill in the matrix, as you
Yeah,
said.
that's how I describe it for people.
Okay. Um, the Nephilim soul removal, right?
Yeah.
The vow breaks, keeper contracts, higher light integration, soul retrievals, shadow work, past life trauma, entity releases, house clearings, geopathic stress clearings, quantum clearing, hidden subconscious ego agendas, generational and past life traumas, and very much anything to do with shock and trauma, right?
Yeah, all the kind
Um,
of surface level stuff.
right. And I'm reading this, and a lot of people probably are like, "Oh, what's all that stuff?" I do most of this myself, so I actually know. Um, and then you also do some light body work, right?
Yeah.
That's a new thing that you're
Yeah, the light body work's kind of something I've been doing for the last 2 years now. So
okay.
it's quite in depth. It takes quite a long time to kind of do all the different training for the light body, but it's kind of where divine healings come from. We have the light
Good.
body, which is all to do with kind of rebuilding the light body that sits, like the comic matrix. We've got the kind of cobwebby structures that sit upon us, and light body. A lot of people think of it as a kind of healing modality, but it's definitely not. It's an activation. It's
Okay.
basically reconnecting you with source and who you are. It's that
Hmm.
remembering of who you are, and it's kind of building the pathways back to being able to reconnect with that, I suppose, in life. So
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's been an undertaking.
Yeah, 2 years. I mean, that's right. And then there's obviously a lot of practical work that you're doing, right? As training and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've been doing it. We go up to Surrey sort of twice a year for a good
Okay.
week, and I've got my clients. I've got my case study clients, and now my thankfully as well clients on top of that. But yeah, we've been doing it. We break it down into sort of manageable chunks and different modules, and it's been really good. It's an interesting one because people will seek you out when they're called to it.
Hmm.
Um, I received the light body myself years ago by a guy in France called Chintan, and he was brilliant. We did it kind of over Zoom, and I think it was around 2020. Must have been about 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
And it's funny because when we talk about it with Nicholas, he's like, "So how was your life? Before the light body, after the light body?" And a few of the kind of practitioners are like, "Oh, I don't know if it's really changed that much." And then we kind of list the things that have happened in our lives, and it's like, oh yeah, no, we've completely done 180 with all of us, and everything has changed.
Yeah. So looking back, it's like, "Oh, wow, this is totally transformed."
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it's just the kind of conscious awareness of what you're doing and what needs to change in your life, as you're doing any kind of work, whether that's hypnotherapy or psychotherapy, counseling, whatever the modality you choose to do is. But yeah, it's there's been huge shifts in my life. Like
Hmm.
I would like to say all for the good, all for the bad, like all for the good long term, with a
Long
few
term, right?
like yeah, with a few fuck what is happening right now start of processes.
Right. And that, I mean, that speaks to the work, right?
Yeah,
We're going into uncomfortable places and we're facing things that feel hard and are hard and all of that. So that makes perfect sense.
absolutely. It's not for the faint-hearted, and I think we spoke briefly. I kind of sent you some sort of like a little bit of a description prior
Mhm.
to this chat, and it was kind of like this kind of work is for people who need to change, who want to change, who really want, who are committed and willing to. It's not just a sort of I'm going through the motions, or I'm attending therapy because someone thinks I should, or any of that.
Mm.
This is a calling.
Right, this depth of work.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't not do it, right? Like this
Absolutely.
life brings you to this place where it's either you do this or, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah. It's a light bulb moment. I think a lot of people have it. I mean, I did counseling. I received counseling for years, and it was a lot of it was of great benefit to me. But for me personally, I always thought it's only going so deep.
Mm,
It, I understand why I'm on this course of action in my life, which is maybe detrimental, or I know why I'm feeling these emotions. But I just want to be able to, like, I understand the why, the cause and effect, but I want to be able to get to the root of this and to change this, to
mm,
change the kind of narrative
mhm,
um, in my own life. So it was, and when I kind of had this, when I kind of got into this work, I was like, okay, cool. So we're working across multiple levels here, and for somebody like me, it was exactly what I needed.
mm. Wow. Well, thank you. Um, and my journey, just looking at my journey, I've kind of been bridged between the therapeutic, right? And it's more holistic focused therapy rather than kind of just the usual talk therapy that the world often I think thinks therapy is, right? There is that therapy, but there's all this whole other world of like somatic therapy and
Mm,
therapy that's actually very similar to shamanism and all these things, just in a different package. So, and then, I like you, I don't know if therapy could have taken me to the depths that these other, this whole contract readings and certainly the divine healing has allowed me to go. So, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Now,
yeah.
you work online, but you also work a lot in Bristol. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got a kind of mixture now. I've got clients from all over the world, which is, it's great. I mean, I love this chat now that you're in Canada and I'm
Right.
over in Bristol in the UK. There's like a really good community, isn't there? And we're dotted around the whole world. So
Hmm.
yeah, I do a lot of online classes and sessions for people. I'm working with a guy out in France, and then I've got people not so far away in Wales or Scotland, and sometimes it might be in America, quite a few in America, or but then when I can, I try to do face to face and in person as well because
Okay.
um, it's just nice to be able to do the both.
Mhm, mhm. And you do that individually, or you do that in groups, or a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. So for the light body and for the divine healing, I just do one on ones because um, it's just something I prefer to do, to work with the person, and you're
Mhm,
connecting them with your team and their team.
mhm.
So for me, when there's too many people, I'm like, it's too much like static and noise. So I prefer to
Right,
kind of work on that one to one.
right.
But
J just
in
put
I do, yeah, I do some group sessions. I've got a group, like a community here in Bristol,
mm,
and we're all doing our kind of own thing, but we'll come together and we'll celebrate like full moons. We'll do something like maybe like a sound bath, or we'll do some healing for each other or
right.
some shadow work, and that's fun too.
Alright, so you have the community, but then you're also doing your own thing. Yeah. You mentioned your team.
Yeah.
Can you just for the listeners, they might not know what that means, can you just what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so for the listeners who don't know, they probably do know. They might have that kind of innate understanding that sometimes something's happened, and it feels like somebody's like watching over them, or has like kind of intervened to stop you
Mm,
doing something stupid, or
right.
like, or it's almost like that whisper in the ear, or when you get that feeling of like you're kind of aware that there's something present.
Like a
I
spirit
guess
guide, but a whole team of them a little bit?
completely that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
for
okay.
me, I've kind of been a bit, I've kind of got used to them, and I've been a bit like maybe taking them for granted, just assuming that they'll know that I've got that they've been there because I've done some stupid shit, but they've, I'm very aware that I'm kind of safe.
Right,
So, but for people who maybe haven't like tapped in or made that kind of connection, it's like, yeah, it's just kind of a team of people who are, or spirits or guides, like you say, who are there to
right,
assist you.
right. And then as a healer, then part of your team are beings that know about healing or can offer certain aspects of healing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the light body, we work with the kind of light body teams. We work with, I mean, it's hard to give it the language,
Right,
that we
right,
when we're kind of like discussing these things, we have to put it into like kind of the language and context that we understand things. So I'll
right,
say like we'll work with a healing team or the Brotherhood of Psychic Surgeons, or and you're
right.
giving these titles like surgeons or brotherhoods and things like that, so people can kind of contextualize them.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
But they are entities, they're energy bodies, they're beings that yeah we work with. Um,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we have to kinda, like, step it down and just so there's language that can be exchanged essentially to be able to communicate about it.
Completely. And if you're too out there or too woo woo, people are just like, what the hell is this person talking about? Like what have they been smoking? And it's like,
Right, right. But I do think that more and more people are becoming more familiar with that. Is that what you would are finding too, or?
yeah, completely. People are really kind of aware now. A lot of it's interesting you were talking about your approach to kind of the holistic therapy side of things.
Mm,
You'll find a lot of people who have been working in the kind of approved fields, the kind of
right.
Freudian tick or the Jungian theory of things.
Mhm,
They might be working in psychotherapy or like noise therapy or whatever it might be. They're starting to bring in kind of divine healing into sessions in a kind
mm,
of low level soft way, and it's the merging of them that you're finding,
right.
and a lot of people are definitely opening up to that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you and I have both said there is a certain level. I did a video recently, and I mean, it really comes down to context. When you're
Mm,
looking at a being or a person as this multi-dimensional, multi-layered experience, right? Then you can incorporate all of that if you're trained and you know how to work that way,
yeah.
right? And of course, trauma, I think, echoes from other lives into this one. So we have these repeating patterns. And so this healing can still happen in the therapy, but in a different way. And I think in many ways, when you can go deep, like divine healing or light body integration, maybe you can get to the root of it certainly quicker.
I
Has that been your
agree.
experience too? Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, it's leaps and bounds. It's a funny one for me because I kind of was like, I feel like I was kind of born with a bit of an awareness, that
Mm-hmm.
this world isn't kind of exactly as it seems, and for me as a child, I was very sensitive to beings and spirits, and this work now is kind of just cementing kind of what I already knew, and but it
Mm,
gives you a framework and a structure and a guidance as to how to interact or to work with people, and to kind of put that into a session.
right.
And it's quite nice to see it finally coming together. It's kind of like confirmation that you're not crazy.
Yeah, I
And
can
there's plenty,
appreciate
or
that.
if I am, there's plenty of other people out there who are on a similar sort of journey
Right.
who are kind of aware of that as well.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I remember a lot of experiences I couldn't explain when I was young that kind of rooted me in this there's more to this world than what we can just see and feel kind of thing. Yeah. Now you've talked a bit about the changes in your life, but
Mhm.
would you say that you've changed in a big way in your life?
Oh my god, yeah. Do you know what? Yes and no, because um, I think that like the essence of who I am has pretty much remained consistent.
Mhm.
In terms of the way I live, how I prioritize things, and how I
Okay.
relate to myself. Those kind of the world around me, those things have kind of changed dramatically. So I think for this work, it's been amazing because in the past, I've kind of done what I thought I should do.
Mm.
It's like you take the conventional path. It was like, okay, you've done well at your A levels, so go to university, or then I ended up doing a master's, and it was like, okay, now you need to get into a job, and all those kind of things that are laid out before you. And I think for me, in the past, when you're young, you're looking to people to kind of guide you a little bit,
Hmm.
and they give you advice, and it's very well intentioned a lot of the time,
Absolutely.
but it's not necessarily the best thing for you.
Totally. Yeah.
So you end up kind of like, I don't know, for me, I tried to fit into a mold at times in my life, which just didn't really align with who I really was.
Mm.
And it started fairly young. I remember being 22 and I finished my masters. I was in London. I was working in a cinema doing any job I could, like freelance writing. And out of the blue, I had two job opportunities present themselves within the same week. And one was to be a press officer for the British Library, which would have been a great sort of amazing job. And then the other was to be like a full-time music journalist, which has
Okay.
no stability, no security.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I know what I should do, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the music journalism because, like, you know what? Who the hell gets to do that in their lifetime, right? It's a dream come true.
Right.
And weirdly, that went well. After that, when I kind of grew out of it, I was like 26, 27, right? Bang on Saturn return time. I was like, I need to grow up now. And I chose a job that was not in my best interest, but was a job I thought I had to do. And I spent the next, like, not even 10 years, but maybe like 6 or 7 years being completely miserable, earning a lot of money, being
Hmm.
very, very successful as like head of communications for tech recruitment companies. But I was so miserable. Like, it was, nothing about that was redeemable. And looking back, it's just like, what the hell are you doing? You like trade your soul, basically. That's how it
Right.
felt.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think over the last few years, it's like now I've kind of done a U-turn again from that. I'm working for like a vegan charity in
Right.
Bristol, which is a very kind of left-leaning place near Glastonbury, and I think now I'm kind of back in alignment again with my own rhythm and intuition.
Mm.
It's just kind of like it feels like that kind of homecoming feeling, like so I'm not becoming someone different, but I'm just kind of allowing myself to be who I've always been underneath.
Right. A bit how you were describing the light body work of like remembering who we are as these universal beings.
Yeah.
You're experiencing that in your human aspect too.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate it's kind of been able to cross over a little bit. It's um for me, I won't go on too much about this because I know a lot of the listeners might not know what the hell a soul contract reading is and might find it quite weird that we're just talking in numbers. But it's
Well, why don't you start by just briefly describing what it is, and then go into it.
yeah, so like a soul contract is something that we sign up for before we incarnate in this lifetime. And it's basically frequencies that come from sound, from your name that is chosen. You know how you'll hear parents will often say that they want to name their baby this, or this. They kind of already have these names picked out. And what's really interesting is when you look at those names, all three names, they might be different names, but when you chart them, you realize they've got the same or very similar like sound vibrational frequencies.
Right.
So, and often that will be because they have to have some specific karma in their lives, or they're going to have specific talents, or goals that they really want to achieve, and hopefully that they're working towards achieving in this next incarnation. Um,
Right.
so that's kind of like the soul contract. And my soul contract is so simple. I've got like three numbers twice. I've got 5, which is communication and truth. I've
Right.
got 10-1, which is being in service. um, Kind of going through a whole spiritual, fraught spiritual, religious meltdown you find with a lot of 10-1s. And then I've got 9s, which is all around like abuse of power and power, and they're all spiritual numbers. There's
Right.
there's nothing
Right.
grounded
Right.
there.
There's no good or bad. This is
No, no, there's no good or bad. It's just those numbers are very kind of specific vibrations. So
right. Right. So our souls kind of have this plan of coming in with a certain experience, not necessarily all the details. Is that how you understand it?
yeah, I think there's still free will. You know, I
Right.
still think you
Right.
choose, you make your choices, but I do think they're tests. And I, when I was kind of mentioning there the two jobs, like which one are we going to go down? And there's
Right.
lessons in both of them, right? There's things you got to learn, and you'd still end up at that like point, I think. But it
Hmm.
just how it plays out is probably slightly different.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So that's a little bit about soul contract readings, which is one of the services that you offer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at your name, your frequencies, the kind of challenges you might face in your life, like how you overcome them. We look at the kind of talents, and it's just kind of like a nice thing to receive, because this was the kind of catalyst that got me back into like taking this work on again.
Mm.
Um, my friend Val, who also does this work, gave me a soul contract reading back in, I think, 2020, and for me it was like, got it, makes complete sense, and just like ran with it. Like she
Mm.
was like, oh, okay. um because when you kind of hear somebody explain like some of the things that have played out in your life, it's
Hmm.
it's seductive. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, and you suddenly understand why you're repeating certain patterns, perhaps, or
Right.
certain behaviors or lessons, or however you want to look at it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
I think there's a sense of being seen and understood, right? Too.
Yeah.
That was my experience having, numerology or human design or all of those sort of systems of awareness, as I call them, right? Like there's this sense of like, oh, there's a pattern to this madness that is my life, kind of. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really nice to hear that, and and
Right.
also to kind of give you some little pointers and guidance on like how to overcome some of it. Like,
Right.
I
Right.
do you know what's really funny? I completely forgot about the kind of my own soul contract, because you do them for other people, or
Right.
you look at name optimization, so you can kind of bring in more balanced frequencies to help with the
Right.
programs and the
Hmm.
frequencies that you're running. And I've named like babies and things like that. So it's like, it's really nice to do that and to be able to offer that, You
Mm.
don't take anything away from the person. You just try to help to kind of, it's a bit like alchemy, right? You just kind of,
Right. You're working with them, kind of guiding them, but not taking over.
exactly that. So
Yeah.
it's funny. I picked up martial arts as well. I've been doing this obsessively now for like 2 years.
Okay.
It's like 6 to 8 hours a week. And what's really funny is I didn't realize it, but in all of the like nines and the 10 ones, with the disempowerment and managing the kind of amount of emotion
Right.
and like frequency you're carrying in your body, and all the time it's like, try Tai Chi, try martial arts, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, when I was about 5, I did martial arts for a year or 2, and it really helped solidify, like, I think just show up on the on in the
Mm,
world a little bit more.
yeah, I
So,
like it as
yeah,
well because it's kind of grounding you into your body,
right.
and it's like the breathing, the chisuku, the kind of pause and breathing, and the meditation side of it is brilliant. So, but yeah, I completely forgot that was in all of the kind of, self-help for these numbers and these frequencies. Do martial arts.
Yeah, I had forgotten that too. I haven't looked at that for a while. That's a good reminder. My son has a 10-1, so maybe that's something for him.
Quite good one.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've shared a lot about this already, but were the it seems like there were a number of things leading you back to this kind of way of life, of way of being, that
Mm.
remembrance of things from when you were younger. But were there certain things that, like, were there a couple of key things that happened in your life that really kind of, that there was the job you mentioned, but are there others, things that happened, things that you were faced with, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say so. It's it was a hard one. Like, as I kind of touched on earlier, when I was really young, I kind of grew up with this awareness.
Mhm.
We moved into a house when I was 2, I think. And before we'd lived there, there was an old man who lived in this house for years, and he died, and he was really nice.
Mhm.
Apparently, I don't remember, but my mum came upstairs and she'd hear me chatting away, and she's like, "Who are you chatting to?" And I used to just call him Granddad.
Okay.
And like one night though, she came up, and I was on the landing, and she went to open the bathroom door, and it was locked. And she was like, "Who's in there, Faye?" And I just said, "Oh, it's just Granddad." And she's like, "Okay." And at that point, she scooped me up and took me downstairs. And obviously, there was when they got the door open, there was nobody in there, even though
Right.
it had been locked. So and that to me was quite normal. Like, I vaguely remember looking out of my window once, I think, and talking to him, but I don't know. It's hard with memory, But that's kind of
Mhm.
one of my earliest memories. And another thing was like we were on holiday. I was about 5 because I had my little brother who was teething and he was screaming a lot. But we were
Okay.
like driving through Cromer, and we went to Cornwall and Stratford upon Avon, basically all the areas not too far from me now. And I remember one point just saying to my parents, "Oh, there's a church coming up soon." And they were like, "What?" And we carried on driving, and there was this church, and like I used to sort of say things and kind of when I was like 5, I had like a boyfriend at nursery on my first day, and my mum was like, "Oh," she's like, "You're gonna marry Lloyd," and apparently I just kind of looked up and just went, "Oh no, I'm gonna marry a woman," and she was just like, "Oh, um, that's not really the done thing," and I was like, "That's just what's gonna happen," and that was like,
Right.
and it's like kind of things like that, but it used to get me in trouble quite a bit. Um, One year I drew like a card for like a relative of mine, and I drew her in bed with like a bottle of gin or vodka, and it turns out she was like secretly battling alcoholism, and that was like her drink
Wow.
of choice, and I'd have no way of knowing that except that was just thinking about her tapping in.
Right,
So,
because often in families, we're conditioned not to talk about these things,
oh god, yeah, like,
right?
yeah, completely. I mean, my dad worked away a lot, so it was
Yeah,
just my
right.
mum. And it was great because we got to travel quite extensively as kids. So we grew up in like a bit of an old industrial town in the northeast of England.
Okay.
Um, but we lived out in Egypt and Israel, and I visited pretty much every single Byzantine, Christian, Islamic, Jewish kind of site possible going. We traveled all over the place, and there was always kind of signs. There were always things that were
Mm.
there present in my life. I when I was like a kid, like 9 or 10, I had like the Gnostic Gospels, and I had the Gospels of Saint Thomas. I went to like Catholic school,
Okay.
but I also had these other things that were like creeping in the whole time. Opening me up sort of to like say Gnosticism and things like that from
Mhm.
even from a really really young age. And because we traveled to all these places, I was learning a lot about Christianity. I was learning a lot about the history and things like that. So by the kind of time I was about 10 or 11 or 12, I knew that the Catholicism side of things wasn't for me, and I was looking for truth because that didn't sit right with me.
Right.
So I've always been like kind of questioning things. As a young kid, I was reading things like George Orwell and Madeleine D'Engle's um, what was her book called? A Wrinkle in Time. And I was really obsessed
Oh,
with
right, okay.
the parallel universes, and
Right, my son and I read those a few years ago.
it's so good, isn't it? But it was
It
like I
is.
remember that being like an absolute trigger to my brain because it was like first dimension's a line, second dimension's a square, third's a cube, fourth time, fifth was the tesseract, the shortcut through time, right?
Right.
And I remember just like being fascinated by that and being like,
Mm.
okay, so time's not linear. Got it. From like a young age and kind
Mm.
of getting my head around that. Um, it's the same as like watching The Matrix in the cinema when I
Mm.
was 14. I was like, I think some boy was trying to hold my hand. I was like, this is
You
really
were
important. Like, not right
you were
now.
there for that, not for him.
Yeah, he was like yawning to do the arm thing, and I was like, shh. What was that book? Was that Simulacra and Simulation? Go away. Keep your lagers. So I think when I was a teenager, like those kind of things, you start. I think your mind's quite expansive then, and you're kind of open to ideas, or you're
Mm.
questioning the kind of world around you. Um, and I remember like consciously tuning into frequencies with like those digital radio clock alarms. Do you remember
Oh, yeah,
those? That used
okay,
to
yeah,
beep
yeah.
and I remember like tuning into their frequencies and like literally being able to manipulate that and to hear the static change and things. And that was
Okay,
like,
so you're working with energy in that way, that was how you were playing with it?
yeah, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just thought it was like stupid and fun, because I was like 14 and that was kind of something I was interested in.
Hmm, hmm.
But yeah, I there
What
were go on, sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say though, in terms of the big things that happened,
Mhm.
when I was 14, we had to write for like our English class a story about like a horror story. And I remember writing very clearly a story called Psychological Fear, which was about this woman who lost her best friend in a car accident and like how she coped with that in the aftermath, like in the future.
Okay.
And it was very, very clear. And like 4 years later, that literally happened. Like I lost my best friend, and I'd named him Richard, and he was called Richard, in the story.
Wow.
And it was like I woke up that morning before I knew what was going on at like 5, and I watched the sunrise, and I just felt I was just so out of it, and I felt really like so zoned out and removed, and I didn't really know what was going on, and but
Hmm,
I did know like that loss, that I was 18 when that happened, and that like really just broke something in me, I think. So, and at that time I was really angry, and I denounced the idea of God, and
okay.
um, I was furious, and all my abilities too. I said, what's the point of being given these insights into things if there's nothing I can do to help people or to stop or to prevent these awful things from happening?
Right.
So that was like a very dark time. And then I went to university and did all the student stuff, drink, drugs, all the fun stuff. But it was kind of blocking it, I think, the pain.
Mm.
Um,
Right,
but yeah,
numbing and yeah,
yeah, but that was
okay.
that was like a real like denouncing of spirit and God at 18. Like, and it's funny because I look back and I remember being really angry about it, and I smashed a cup, like a mug, and I'm laughing now because when I think back, it was like a constellations mug. Like, it's like this is why I laugh, and I think my team have a sense of humor because it's just like in all of like even in the dark parts, it's like there's a piss take. You know what I mean? It's like there's something. There's like always a sign, which is quite funny.
Right,
So
and often we can't see it until later, and
no,
maybe even after later than that, we laugh about it, but
yeah, it's like years later. I mean, I had loads of stuff go on in my 20s. My mum got cancer and she died when I
hmm,
was like I found that out when I was 23, and I'd had like a date with this girl who I was in love with for the first time, and it was all very, there was a lot of things kind of happening around that time, but
hmm,
and I lost my voice because I couldn't express myself. There'd just been like a buildup of quite a lot of trauma at that point, and yeah, so books, music, writing, all those things were like a good kind of outlet, but I get that like all of those events that happen are like part of the larger unfolding,
mhm,
because when you live through those experiences and struggling and stumbling and trying to remember who you are, and what you're here for, it's like when you go through that kind of survival and reflecting, that's how you kind of come back to yourself again, even though it's really difficult.
right. Right, you need the experience, otherwise how do you get to be remember that you are this person,
Yeah.
right?
And
It's the
it's
experiences that lead you there.
Yeah, and it's so funny because if you're kind of open to it, people and situations will turn up in the most
Mhm,
unexpected times. Like when I was working in the corporate world, we had this lady who came in to give people massages.
mhm.
And it was funny because we were quite a young company. We were like 20s and 30s. And she came in and she was just like, this place, I can't work here because it makes me really sad. She's like, the tension and like the pain, she was like, the energy and the stuff.
She was
Like
saying this about you.
everybody in this company. She was like, "It's
Oh,
so
okay,
sad," But to me,
okay.
she said, "You have to get out of here. Like,
Okay.
She was like, "I don't know, you especially need to leave this place," and she said that kind of clarity and knowing where you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna pay attention to this."
Right.
So, yeah, and I think she was there to sort of say that at that time. I mean, I didn't listen to her. I slogged on, and that was a terrible thing to do, but
Right.
that was, yeah, just before the soul contract reading from Val, so, it was on the course had changed at that point, something was changing.
And perhaps she planted a seed, right?
Yeah,
So,
she did.
but yeah, those voices often do come in an unexpected way, or this I've had that many times. So I was actually just that thing for someone else recently. So sometimes you're on the other side of it too, right?
Nice.
You
Oh,
just
well, that's the nice thing about what we do, right? It's
Mhm.
that little nudge, or
Right. And often, I feel this urge, the way that it comes up for me is to say something to someone, and b previously I would have been too embarrassed to it would have been too vulnerable, it would have been whatever for me to actually say that, but more and more now it's like those are the things, even if I can't explain them, those are the things that might really help someone,
yeah.
right? And not to be attached to it, not that I expect that to come, right? But I can share the thing and not be attached to it landing or not landing, but often it does.
Mhm.
That's sort of the beauty of the unknown coming through me. Like I'm just a delivery mechanism, and yet it's this wonderful experience for me as well.
Yeah, I can completely relate with that. We're like we have very little to do with it, I think.
Right.
But I think when people have seen that you've gone through something that maybe they can relate to, it does make it a bit easier for people to kind of open up to you because
Hmm.
they can maybe recognize parts of you that they can feel themselves.
Right.
And then it's just kind of over to their team to like say what they need and
Right.
for us to
Right.
be like, yeah, cool, I can probably help you.
Well, and also in some ways, if you've been through it, then you're the proof that a person can get through it.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
like
there
our
is
own
the other
social
side.
validation.
Right. Right. Would you say that there's things that really stick out in your mind, either like things that you had to unlearn, reconsider, or change a belief to help you make these big leaps in your evolution?
Yeah, completely. I mean, as well as I do, we like as Philip Larkin says, they fuck you up, your mum and dad. You're taking on like we take on so much from parents, we take on so much from society, from peer groups, from even
Mm,
like say a bad teacher or a good teacher. We're kind of like sponges, especially as we're growing up.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, like for me, I grew up in a kind of household. I had a good life. I'm not going to complain about it, but
Right.
there was a bit of a resistance from my mum to being seen, and there was a lot of secrecy from my mum and dad.
Mm,
Um, like my mum was quite emotionally with like closeted about
okay.
herself and her own kind of needs and feelings. So, I mean, I remember being age 17 and I told her that I wanted to follow like a feeling or an emotion as far as it could kind of go.
Okay.
Because I thought that if I could do that, I'd get some sort of truth and a deeper understanding of something. I mean, this is like a teenager sort of thing to say, but
Right. Right.
I just remember her looking at me confused, and she was like, "Are you depressed or something?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm feeling kind of disconnected from the world around me." And I took myself off to counselling at 17, and I remember her response was just, "Don't tell anybody, keep it dark." That kind of
Mm,
was it anything to do with me? Don't air your dirty laundry in public. That kind of like response.
mhm.
Um, and I just remember thinking, that's a bit sad. Like I was thinking, I'll say what I want to say. Thank you. I remember having that kind of, no, I'm not going to let you. I'll
Wow,
say
that's
what I need to say.
good for
Um,
you.
yeah, I've got that kind of stubbornness. I think, for want of a better
The
word.
positive stubbornness, yeah.
Yeah, mostly positive. But it's like my mum was like a really talented writer. She had a great sense of humor, but she was really frightened of being seen. Even
Mm,
when she was like dying of cancer, she was like, one day I'll tell you about my life, but she never did. And at
mm,
the time, I was like, I don't really want to push for that. And as a kid, you kind of feel like sometimes you're carrying a lot of those unspoken feelings or emotions for somebody else, you're holding them.
mm.
So, like looking back now, I understand she's kind of making herself small, and for whatever reasons they may have been, that they're her reasons. But I think for her, like she and I would clash quite a bit because I always had that need to explore the truth, and I definitely could trigger her. But it was a love hate thing because she used to say I was brave and strong, and she admired that. But it's it's kind of like it's the double edged sword looking back because you know that she could have been that, or she was in her own way.
Right.
But
Mm,
and then my dad, he's a complete paradox. In his soul contract readings again, he's all eights, which is highly ungrounded.
right.
Um, they struggle to hold down a job or a family, or my dad's lived and worked away his whole life. He's a secretive man, but he's also very intuitive. My mum and dad were both very psychic. My dad still
Okay.
is, but he'll question authority. He rails against systems. He loves a conversation on Soros or something, and he sees through a lot of societal illusions. But despite his rebelliousness, he's very, very compliant at the same time,
Okay.
which is like, I don't even know where to begin with that. But he's like, like when the kind of vaccine came out, I don't care if people got it or they didn't, but he really wrestled with that because he did not want it and he was so against it. But then he decided, but he actually got it and he got all of the boosters,
Okay.
despite like having this big tirade against it. And I was like, well, why did you do that? And he was like, well, you have to because what's going to happen when they come for you? And I was like, well, I don't know, I don't care. Like, we'll cross that bridge if it happened. That was kind of my because I didn't want it. Yeah, so it's kind of like they're quite like complicated. I think they had like a scarcity mindset around money and a
Okay.
tendency to kind of shrink or submit when they're faced with systems or people.
Hmm.
Um, so I've kind of had to consciously unlearn those patterns. Like my mum was scared of anyone with money who was like educated, and um, my dad hates the public sector for some reason. And like,
Okay.
I don't care. Like, I'm happy to talk to anybody. But I've had to.
Right.
So I kind of had that, but I've had to really undo a lot of their patterning around like having the fear of not having a job. I had a period where I had to go through that, and I lost all my savings. Um, and I bounced back but these kind of things. So yeah, I've had to kind of undo their kind of patterning on me as well. But
Right.
so it's just, yeah, just not hiding and figuring things out, even if it's uncomfortable. And it did confront everything I was kind of taught to believe for a while. But
Hmm. Was was there a particular moment when you really understood or realized the possibility of intentional change?
hmm.
Or was that at a young age for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I think because I was so used to things, you know, and being tapped into so many things, I didn't realize that that was weird or that isn't
Okay.
what most people experience.
Right.
But I had a huge amount of change in 2020, as I'm sure like a lot of people did. That
Mm-hmm.
was a real pivotal moment, I think, for society as a whole. But
Right. It was a huge catalyst, right?
oh my god, yeah. I mean, that was
Yeah.
the year that I just completely surrendered. I was
Mm.
like sat on the floor of this like flat, like where I was living, my American Psycho flat, as I call it in London, and like I burned out. So I had a job lined up, but not for a couple of months. So I quit my job. Had this one like 3 or 4 months later lined up, but then COVID hit. I couldn't get furlough. The savings went. It was like, and I was like, oh shit, okay. So I like I'm fucked. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do
Right.
now.
Right.
And nobody was hiring. There was like a
Mm.
complete hiring freeze. there were mortgage breaks for homeowners, but I was still renting, and it was just kind of a crazy time. And I was completely alone. Like everybody else had left London or had gone back to live with their parents, or so I was like living on my own. And I think after like a couple of months, it just kind of I used the time to do a lot of writing and a lot of like work. I was doing my divine healing, and I was in some ways like super connected, but at the same time, the reality of the 3D felt way harsher than it would have done
Mhm.
normally.
Mhm.
But it just got, I was down to my last like £100 or £200 or something, and I just remember being like, okay, I said it out loud, I'm done. Like, I surrender. I will do whatever you need. Just universe, team, come on, like, help me out. And I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but it was like it was exactly the same as what I'd done when I was 18 and kind of denounced it all. It was the
Mhm.
reverse of that, but it was a complete mirror of everything that I'd done at 18, but the other way around. So it was acceptance, and it was like a full body soul level, just letting go. And like the funny thing was, Joel, like after that, like I ran a bath, and which I always do, that's my calm place. Like sit in the dark in a bath. And like 20 minutes later, I got a phone call. I think it was like I got £500 from, like, my grandma had died, and like
Mm.
she had a little bit of money, so I got £500 come back. I had a job interview in Bristol, and but it was all like at the same time. And I was like, cool, thanks, that was really quick.
That was fast. It
Oh,
doesn't always work that way,
yeah,
but
you guys are great. Like, I should do this more often. And like,
Mm.
yeah, that was it. From that point on, it was like fast forward. The path I'm supposed to be doing was just that was it. It was like clarity from that moment and speed, and
Mm.
that surrender was absolutely the shifting point, though.
Mm. Yeah, I often joke that surrender and letting go are my arch nemesis. Like, not now so much, but in the past, like it was just my life was just falling apart, but I still could not bring myself to do it at first. So it is a huge pivotal thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you're fighting yourself all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like even when you do this work, when you start to like see things or you start to experience things, you're like, okay, but let me just try and like qualify this in a constructive way to explain away what's just happened. And it's like, just accept it, just accept it.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it, really?
It is. In a minute here, I want to move to kind of how you see personal change more from like working with your clients and stuff and more generally, but I want to ask one more question about kind of your journey, and I'm sure your journey will come up in these other conversations as well, right? But what role do you think vulnerability has played in your journey?
Oh, yes. That's a good question. It's and you kind of said that the kind of thing that you struggled with was kind of
Right.
like letting go and
Right. Right.
acceptance. I
Right.
think that yeah, for my personal evolution and things, vulnerability was really, really difficult.
Mm.
It, that was probably the biggest shift. Like, in all honesty, that was probably the
Okay.
biggest thing. It's like, hmm, it was really hard to do initially.
It is, yeah.
You start, and then you automatically kind of go into this default conversation, and it's almost like you're protecting. It's the ego. I think I just had a really, really strong ego, and vulnerability was so far. I mean, we live in this society where being weak is feminine, and crying and opening up, and it is frowned upon. In order to be successful, you have to follow these rules and do these things. And I
Right.
kind of just unintentionally bought into that. You kind of adopt this sort of survival instinct sometimes. And for me, vulnerability was being able to open up to people and to find people to trust and to listen to them and to learn from them and to soften. And again, you know, I've had friends, I've been very fortunate with people who I've had in my life as friends. I've always been able to talk to them, but 2020 again was that time. It was that whole community of people that we found,
Hmm.
and like going along to their meditation classes and holding space for each other and being able to kind of articulate some of the things that were really, really difficult. You know, like when I told you at 26 I lost my voice, like I really
Mm,
did. I put like trust in somebody and I was sharing so much. And when that like relationship ended, I couldn't I couldn't express myself anymore and I kind of
mm,
closed off speaking. It's
mhm.
and it's been like learning to speak again, which is ironic, you know, as a head of communications. But like learning to speak has been really has been a lesson in itself. I'd always prefer to write, and
Okay.
so yeah, vulnerability, trusting people and opening up to people and being honest with yourself and being honest with other people and saying when you need help and saying, look, I can't do all this on my own. I need you has been like one of the biggest, the
Mm,
best, but one of the biggest challenges at the same time.
right.
It's the most
Mm.
rewarding too.
Yeah, we can't do it alone,
Absolutely not.
right?
Nor would we want to, you know?
Yeah, although sometimes it might seem like it, at least for me. But no, we can't do it alone, and that's been a hard lesson for me. You know that we can't do
How's
it
it
alone.
how's it played out for you?
Um, well, I have for me relationships like friendships have really come and gone in my life, and um, I think you know growing up, I was I came into this world as this very independent, self-sufficient person, and then my family system just doubled down on that, so to speak, right? And again, I'm not into blaming anything. This isn't about blame, but just recognizing, I had twin sisters, 2 years younger than me. They had a lot of kind of emotional needs and all sorts of things happening. Again, not criticizing them, but it just in some ways it just naturally followed that I became this like independent kind of lone wolf, and
Mm,
it becomes comfortable, right? That whole trusting another person to show up for you when there's no guarantee. And I've had many experiences where people don't show up for me for lots of different reasons. A lot of the time it had nothing to do with me, but it still impacted me,
mm,
right? And being as sensitive as I am, I spent most of my teenage years like I'm kind of envious you talking about how you were exploring and all of that because I was so dissociated and through my teenage years I've come to realize, and I didn't realize this at the time. I just thought that was normal, right? As you
mm,
do. Um but I didn't really ever let people in and hold me and show up for me. And so it's been one of my most difficult unlearning, so to speak. It's still hard for me a lot of the time because I'm still
mm.
very self-sufficient. Um, but I have also experienced intense, wonderful moments of periods in my life where I fully did let people show up for me, and it completely changed me in a positive way.
Mm.
So yeah, I have these other experiences.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because yeah, it takes. I think you've got to be ready for it.
Mm,
You know, we've both had to. From what you've said, it sounds like you become quite self sufficient,
mhm,
but it gives you that kind of not armor, but it gives you the strength to know that actually, whatever
mm.
happens, you'll be okay. Like you can rely
Yeah,
on yourself,
right.
even if it's really hard. So
Yeah,
I think there's got to be a readiness for the vulnerability because I mean it you've got to really need it. It's kind of like, okay, I've done as much as I possibly can for myself, but I've got to
right.
have other people help, and vice versa. You can be there for other people too. And
Right. I think what's changed is, I came into the world as a very innocent. It took me a long time for me, like I was like probably 11 or 12 before I started realizing that people didn't necessarily want the best for me.
yeah.
I was blind to it because I always wanted the best for people. Like I legitimately just I showed up in the world that way. And
Mm.
so um and then there was this like kind of I think dramatic um whoa, I got to protect myself. It's a big scary world, and it kind of came, I think, very abruptly for me.
Mm,
And now that I've done all the work that I have, I trust myself to know where I can trust people,
yeah. Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I can hold myself if I'm wrong. It's
Yes.
like, "Oh, you know what? I was wrong about that person. Doesn't feel good, and, I might be pissed off for a while, whatever, but I know that I will be okay little ways down the road."
Mm. And that's another thing we don't really talk about, isn't it? It's that kind of the sort of death of innocence, really, isn't it? Not to be
Mm.
too literary about it all, but when you're a kid, that's normal, right? I mean, 11 to 12, it's that kind of preteen pivotal age. So you got quite far in a way, and then it's probably
I
something
did.
that's like, whoa, this is like a huge thing to suddenly contain and understand. I was definitely younger. I mean, I was nearly kidnapped when I was like 7 in Egypt,
Wow,
and
wow.
I've had some really traumatic experiences, which I'm fine talking about now. But you shut down, don't you? And you hold that kind of trauma when you're a kid inside you, and so you learn to kind of keep yourself safe, or your younger sibling or whoever it might be. So,
Yeah.
and you hold that, but it is sad because it does kind of change how you look at people in the world, and you get a real good sense, though, like intuition wise, you can feel when somebody's energy's off, or
Mm.
you know
Mhm. For sure. And I think I lived up until I was about 37. I was talking with someone recently about this, with this idea that the world's not a safe place, not at least not for me, right? That's
mm.
and we project our beliefs out into the world, and then the world shows up that way. And so, in many ways, it was showing up that way because it was, fulfilling my belief. Um, but something switched about 4 or 5 years ago, where I started seeing the world. Yes, it's damaged, it's traumatized, it's all of these things, but the world actually is a safe place.
Mm.
And so that really, again, I trust myself, but not I don't I'm not looking out into the world as this thing that wants to, damage me. People are behaving mostly from their own trauma, their own unresolvedness inside of them, right? It's not really even about me.
Mm.
So,
That's true.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so I want to switch a little bit more to, personal change in general, working with clients.
Yeah.
So do you think transformational or personal evolution follows a certain general path, or is it unique for everyone, or, how do you see that?
I'm loving this.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
how
love
was your
these
day? Where are
conversations.
you going on your holiday? Let's go straight in. Do you know what? I think it's different. It's different for everybody. Well, this is my contradictory sides. It's different for everyone's doing their own journey, their own path, right? But I do think you see sort of similarities, in
Mhm,
when you're speaking to people. I think. I mean, the main thing that I really see, and I was having a conversation with a friend last night. She's quite a lot younger than me. She's going through it, and she was like, what do I do next?" I was like, "I think you're just at that genuine surrender stage where it's almost like things are compiling, and I don't know how to say it to you nicely, but it feels like when you really surrender, that's going to be that
mhm,
that real soul level surrender. That's where it gets real. It's uncomfortable, but you have to really want that. It's that real thing that cracks something open, because it just takes the ego out of things, and
mm,
when the ego is just muted for a little bit, or just silence, you're allowing like this deeper kind of connection, or this intelligence to kind of guide you. But as we were saying with the vulnerability as well, I think like the transformation or evolution for people, there's got to be a readiness. Somebody can hear the same message 100 times,
mhm,
but until they're like truly ready to see it or to hear it, then they're just going to ignore it, and
right.
it won't, like that lady who was giving the massages and saying, you need to get out of here, and I was like, yeah, 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 it's on my to-do list. But it's like,
Right.
until it's delivered in a way that really resonates with you, it has to kind of emerge from within. And often that's from some sort of personal unraveling, I've found.
Yeah.
It's not the nice massage you're receiving. Like, "Oh, that's a lovely idea." Yeah, it's usually when, "Oh god, I can't take any more." But I think in those moments, you are the most vulnerable.
Mm.
It is when the kind of loss or discomfort or something's happening like that that you kind of can't hide behind excuses. You have to be really honest. Um, and I
Mhm.
think when you do that, you can kind of see where you're wearing a mask or you're living out someone else's expectations. And when you get rid of all of that and you're starting to strip it away, I think that for me, I think is where people kind of meet and start to evolve a little bit because you're being the most honest version of yourself. There's no, yeah,
Right. Right. Yeah, it's like, you're letting your true self, there's cracks, so to speak, and that light, that true authentic you're remembering and you're experiencing that come out.
yeah.
And those messages from spirit, from our guides, from our teams, they come through those cracks, and they'll keep pushing through the cracks until eventually you listen, right? You're like, okay, they didn't hear the message the first 100 times, but maybe on the next one.
They're probably like, "Oh my god, how much work are you like? Did we really sign up for this? Like, why are you so stubborn and adamant? Why are you still going? How have you not just cried already?" Like, but it's funny. You got to. It's the timing of it as well.
Mm,
You got to trust that even though when you look back and laugh at the fact you're repeating the same thing over and over in different guises, that
right.
maybe you're just waiting for the right time for that. It's got its own meaning. I don't know even know how to start to look at that, but it was only
Right.
really when like I stopped fighting and started trusting the process, even when it makes absolutely no logical sense. Like
Mm,
that's when it kind of shifts and changes. And you, I don't know, like speaking to my clients, you can see that that's sort of happened in their lives as well.
mm,
Maybe there's been like a trigger for that kind of change, and yeah.
mm. So are there kind of key things to this, or do you think like things that are generally part of this evolution, or
I think we talk a lot in our sort of contracts, don't we, about how the kind of roughly the first half of your life is kind of learning the lessons and going
mm,
through things, and then you move into the sort of more spiritual side in the second part of your life.
right.
And I kind of, in some ways, I kind of get that for a lot of people, but then sometimes I just don't. Like, you meet people who are like, maybe it won't happen in this life, maybe it will, who knows, but I don't know. I think as a one size fits all, maybe not. I don't align with that so much. I think there's got to be like the surrender, the readiness and willingness, like genuinely to
Mm,
want to like change and to listen. And you've got to be honest with yourself, and yeah, you're going to be walking through fire. Like,
right.
this isn't going to be fun, this isn't going to be
Right.
easy. You're going to
There will be
view
a
the depths
humbling.
of your
Yeah.
soul,
Right.
and all the awful parts of yourself that you don't want to admit are true, but they are. You just got to like accept them
Right.
and admit to it and take a bit of accountability, I think. And yeah,
Right. That ego death, like it's coming.
yeah.
And it sounds scary, and it's difficult, but I mean life is difficult already, so
True,
it's
true.
a different kind. It's a different kind. What do you think gets in the way of people's change? And maybe that's just everything you just shared, like getting having the readiness, the willingness, that sort of thing. But what do with your clients and also in your own experience or with your friends, what do you see as generally the major hurdles
Hmm.
to change, to coming to something new?
I think a lot of people feel stuck.
Hmm.
We have very real living concerns, basic things like housing, how people can afford to feed themselves, to feed their kids, um, work security, money, and we're bombarded with propaganda, right, from the newspapers that are feeding into this constant loop of just like like misery to people, and that's what people consume, right? That's so to and like, if I'm being completely honest, a lot of people, I think, just go through the motions,
Mm,
you know? It's like they wanna say they're doing something to but unless they, like, feel that there's a necessity to change,
right,
they'll find excuses not to.
right.
And it's not just about, like, not having the money, but people will manifest, like, obstacles to get in the way of it, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm a bit poorly tonight, I can't make it," and you're kinda like, "Yeah, I already knew that you weren't ready," or, you can tell,
Right.
and and sometimes it's actually just being like, just be gentle with those people because everyone goes at their own pace, so you have to take things slowly, and it's very individual in that respect. Some people are like the opposite, and it's equally not as good. They just want to like spiritually bypass and like
Mhm.
run through things and be like, tick, tick, tick. I've done this. I've done this. Okay, I've got my gene
Right,
keys now. I've
right.
got this. I'm evolved, and you're like, oh Christ, spare me. Like it's like
Yeah, I had a period where I was like that, so I appreciate that.
that's. Sorry, Joe.
No, it's fine,
no.
it's fine. No, this is a really important thing, and you see it in therapy too,
Mm, mm,
right? Like, there's part of someone that's like, "Life is really hard and I wanna change," but are they really ready, or they just, you know?
it becomes
And
another
both are
body.
okay, as you say, like, it's okay to show up in both places,
Yeah,
but there's a different level of willingness sometimes
true. No,
when change is really, they're really ready for things to change. And maybe they need to feel safe and all these things before, and it's totally valid, right? It's
oh yeah,
not, but you see it in some, I think, therapies, but you definitely see it in the spiritual communities where you're right. It's like this to-do list,
yeah.
these check boxes, and it's like, okay, but what have you actually experienced, and what has actually changed other than you just going through these kind of like experiences that you can check off?
Oh, completely. I mean, it you've seen it as well as I have. The spirituality has been commodified. It's
Right.
packaged, it's marketed now, and I mean, maybe it always was, but it's like it's almost like you get end up being trapped.
Right.
It's so funny because in terms of our culture that we're living in, it's changing.
Hmm.
There's more awareness now, like with younger generations, especially around like mental health, identity, healing.
Right.
But and we're kind of operating in this middle ground, where we're operating on like slightly out of the kind of day to day, but also something that people are starting to understand more of.
Hmm.
But this, even for some of the healers, a shame and skepticism around anything outside of this mainstream. But I don't know, like I feel like when spirituality becomes commodified and when it becomes marketed, you can it becomes kind of tainted, and people start to speak in a certain way. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people will like lengthy Facebook posts, but it's
Mm.
all like this kind of adopted language, and you're like, where is this coming from? Why are you all speaking in the same way? It's almost like you've got Shakespearean inflections, almost like "thine will behave" and this, and I'm like, what is this all about? And you get people kind of in the flowy dresses, and I mean, I live near Glastonbury, and I was there the other week, and I am a cynical bitch at times. And there's these group of women, and they had their capes, and I was like, this looks like so much fun. You know what I mean? It looked like a lot of fun, but I was just like, it's the Real Housewives of Glastonbury, and it's like, and they're all like selling elixirs and things like this. Like really, it's all products, and buy into this, and buy into this health, and buy into this well-being, and you don't need any of that. Like, you know what I mean? You just,
Right.
but it's a funny one because it opens people up, I guess, to like this whole other idea of like consciousness.
Right. It's maybe a stage on the way,
Yeah, maybe it is, but
right?
yeah, it's just so annoying that everything in the world has to be like marketed and commodified, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed that, like, I've been recording some videos and talking about some things, and videos now on YouTube, they cut out every little pause. There's, like, no breath. There's no and I've I found myself part of me like, do I join that? Or do I do this other thing where there are pauses and, I tend to be a slow speaker and do I just be myself?
Yes.
Do some editing, but, where is this balance? One person I look up to, he's this reality creation guy, and he in one of his videos I was watching, he speaks to that fact. It's like if my slow speech and in the tempo of my videos is too much for you, maybe that's something you can look at,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Because we live in this high paced society, and it's reflected in the algorithms of all the social media, right? They want that dopamine. A lot of us know how they've learned the psychology and used it to keep us on these things, right? Keep us going and always interested in the next thing and the speed and everything. But it's not until we actually slow down
Yeah.
that deep change can happen.
No, you're completely right. I mean, even before this, I was saying, "Oh, I'm glad that you're doing
Right.
the podcast. You have such a lovely cadence to your voice."
Thank you. I appreciate that.
ASMR. But no, I agree with you. It's like people are messy, and
Mm.
that's okay.
Hmm.
And we don't need to be polished. We don't need to perform. And we're at that kind of certain age where we've grown up later than social media came in. I think we were
Right.
probably in our 20s, so we were still young enough to be
Right.
suckered in by it. But, you see kids now, sorry, kids like 20-year-olds now and
Right.
younger children. They're like, it is very performative.
Hmm.
And it used to be that maybe you'd have one or two characters in your school year who were, kind of like that. And
Mm.
whereas now it's kind of it's the norm. And I don't know, I don't know. I think for me, it breaks the kind of illusion, that healing has to look or be a certain way. I don't know.
It's going to be uncomfortable. Like
Mm,
that's the nature of it because we're facing into the shadow or these things that are unresolved, and
yeah.
that's not going to always feel good.
No, and you're right. A lot like we just need to be honest. That people
Mm.
can just show up as they are because that without needing to be fixed or judged. It's
Hmm.
you're not fixing yourself. It's not that. That's not what we're doing. We're just trying to work through.
Hmm.
It's not like, I guess it's kind of like the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, it's like this quick fix solution to things, and it's almost
Right.
like it's almost like healing's being like aped into that kind of mold of here's a
Right.
solution, and it's
Right.
just, I don't like that. I don't really believe
Yeah.
that.
Well, I did a video recently, and it's all about integration, about bringing us back, bringing all the pieces, the whole like soul retrieval idea from shamanism. We've chopped up our society into these tiny pieces. We have all these specialists and doctors, and that's not all bad, but we don't necessarily look at health in a full holistic type way where we look at all the pieces. You go to your doctor, you got 6 minutes, and they're not going to ask you about anything except very specifically um, whatever is troubling you, and then they're going to decide how to help you. And it's like you don't know anything about all the things that are surrounding this. You don't know, like mental health in some ways. Um, the psychology, the word psychology used to mean of the soul,
Mm,
and now we've brought it down to mental health, and I think that's expanding now with somatic therapies and different therapies, and so we're kind of like coming back from that, but it got really really small in this condensed like you know perspective where we're not
mm,
looking at a whole person, we're not looking at the whole situation that somebody's experiencing. So
mm.
yeah, I hear that in what you're saying.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially what you say about the doctors. And that's like again where people are kind of there's so much going on, and there's such an influx of dopamine hits, things coming at them, advertising everything. It's so fast paced, and actually, it's disconnecting you from your body. You know,
Absolutely.
you go to your doctor and you say, I've got this pain. They're saying, oh, well, okay, it could be this. And you're not feeling into what the actual thing is. And a lot of the time, the doctors don't listen. But people seem to think that they're experts over their own body. And you're like, hang on a minute. No, you should know like your body better than anybody and how you feel. And,
Right.
because the doctors, they're exhausted. They don't have time. They're going to just
Yeah,
try
they're
and
burnt
figure
out, right.
like with
Yeah.
the easiest solution, or here's some pills that'll, reduce inflammation, or I don't know. It's quite fatalistic, I think,
Mm,
and people kind of
mm.
get stuck in that feedback loop of, oh, that this is just how it is. This is normal. This is society. This is the world I live in. I don't think they even question it, and when people do healing, it's not going to be like instant or linear. It's
Right,
cyclical, it's messy, and it's very uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean it's not working. It's,
right.
it's the
And it's not gonna, it doesn't just mask the symptoms. And so you're not gonna necessarily notice the difference one session or whatever, right? Like, but it didn't take you one experience to get to the place you're at either.
No.
It's been these whole lifetimes, and if you look at like multidimensional healing, it's many lifetimes
Yeah.
of these things, and so it takes some time to unwind them to get get back to a more whole place. So yeah, yeah, thank you for that. Um, so when you're working with clients, how do you describe your approach? Like, so if you have someone new reach out to you, or what do you sort of how do you let them know what you do?
Yeah. So it's a funny one with me because I don't advertise online. Um,
Hmm.
I it was kind of like we were talking about the marketing, and
Hmm.
I personally just I don't know. I do that as a job, or I did that as a job, and I work in communications, and the last thing I want to do when I leave work is to do any more of that,
Fair.
you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I mean, what'll happen is people will. It's word of mouth. I'm fortunate that I live in a place where what I do is kind of accepted and it's
Hmm.
normalized, and
Hmm.
um, but at the same time, there's people online who will find me. I don't know how, I don't know why, but there's like a kind of community, and when people are ready, they will come. And I've had clients for years. Like I've literally had people working with me for like years and years now, and some people, which you could look at that cynically and say, "Well, you're doing a terrible job." Why?
Right. Right.
But no, they come back, and we keep going and working through things. I have clients that will drop in from time to time, when something happens, like maybe a shock or something, and they want
Hmm.
like a shock and trauma treatment.
Hmm.
But generally, people find me when they're ready. Um, I think the weirdest story was there was this guy who messaged me on Facebook,
Hmm.
just out of the blue, and he was like, "Hey, really random one, but do you do tarot readings?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's a young guy, like he was like 18, and I started doing the reading, and I was like, "I'm really sorry, but there's someone just sat here with me who's this is actually they just want to talk to you." And it was like his I was like, "Has your grandma died and like recently?" And he was like, "Yeah, like 2 weeks ago." I was like, "Okay, cool, so I'm just gonna say what she needs to say." And then if we want to carry on with this tarot reading, then fine. But like
Right.
so that was kind of weird, and that was just like a guy through the internet.
Hmm.
um but there's people show up when they kind of need it, um or through like recommendations. You'll laugh at this because this is the most kind of Bristol Glastonbury thing ever. I got like a lift to a stone circle for a for a solstice last year. Oh, I'm cringing. And the girl who gave me a lift, she was like really nice, and we just got chatting at like 5 in the morning, as you do, about like she was asking about spirituality, and she came to me for like a soul contract reading, and she's like a regular divine healing client now. And
Hmm.
but for people kind of like coming into this,
Hmm.
um, I usually give them a soul contract reading first, just so they get a bit of an understanding, like why they kind of came here and the karmic patterns, everything we discussed.
Hmm.
And then from there, it kind of lends on quite like nicely to the healing work because, we can clear everything from past life traumas, hidden ego agendas, shadow work, soul retrieval, all of that.
Right.
Um, and that's very fluid to kind of what needs to go on in their life at the moment. Whatever comes through, we just work with that.
Right. Right.
And then finally, the light body, which isn't the healing; it's the activation side of things. So
Hmm.
when you're a sovereign being and you're really ready to step into that and to return to that full presence and power, then like that's when we get into the light body stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm very fortunate where I live. I There's like an open meet for people who are working in different holistic therapies or within also like the occult or esoteric realms, and people just come together and talk about like lots of different things. We had a
Okay.
guy talk about the effects of like mushrooms and psychedelics in chaos magic, and like where I live, you get all sorts of different people doing all sorts of different work. So it's a good place to kind of just chat to people, and those
Wow.
that will resonate just come and work with you. It's
Yeah, that sounds great.
it's ideal because you know what, Joe, when I was marketing it I didn't want to do it really. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want the website. It all felt inauthentic.
Hmm.
And it's funny because given the speech thing for me, I was like, no, it's easy. I can write really well. I can put something online. I know how to market this to target audiences, blah, blah. And in the end, it's only been through talking to people and that actually this is where they're coming through and the people that I can help and work with, the right
Right.
people too.
Right. People that are ready for the work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Thank you. Can you? I know this is difficult, but I just want to give the reader or the readers, the listeners, some idea of a little bit of what maybe a divine healing session might look like.
Yeah, of course. Um, so typically either on Zoom or in person,
Mm-hmm.
um, they the the client would like make themselves comfortable, drink some water beforehand, make sure they go to the loo,
Mm-hmm.
lie down. What
Right.
we'll do is we'll open the space. We'll connect in with the guides, um, and then once that's good, we'll kind of settle them. Just depending, we'll maybe do some breathing exercises or like a meditation or something, just so we kind of like shift into that fifth dimensional space. So your mind's not racing from everything in the day. And
Mm-hmm.
then what we'll do is I'll just ask the guides. I'll be like, okay, where are we going? So sometimes the client can come with things that they want to work on, specific things.
Okay.
And I'm really happy to do that. Mostly when I've been working with them a while though, because quite often it's like you can get the ego playing a trick, being like, oh, let's work on this because actually I don't want to touch this. And
Avoiding, yeah.
yeah, and I always find that quite funny. It's like when they come in, it's kind of different to counseling where you come in like this is happening, this is what I need help with. For me, it's like okay, maybe that's that, but maybe actually that stems from something else, and we don't know what that is. So
Mm-hmm.
I I've tried when I was less confident, like maybe like 5 years ago when I was starting this, I'd listen to what they say and be like, maybe I should go into this chart. No, I don't do any of that anymore. I'm just like, okay, just tell me where to go. And they'll just tell me like a page number or like a chart. And
Okay.
that's it for me. I just find it now and just go with it. And at first it's funny because sometimes the client might be like, no, that doesn't relate to me. And you're like, okay. And when I first started, I was like, "Oh my god, maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I've heard incorrectly." And then it's like, "No, no, no." You just go, "Okay, fine." And then you might go into some other charts, and there'll be things that you
Mm.
have to then clear, and then eventually it'll loop back around to the beginning thing, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, this
Right.
completely relates to me."
Right.
And it's quite funny sometimes, like
Yeah, I experience that working as a healer too sometimes. I often tell my clients these are just trailheads,
yeah,
right? This is just the way we go into it. And I find that often relaxes them and it's like, okay, and then, you know, and then we find our way. Because you're right. The guidance I find as a divine healer, it's not wrong. A person might not be quite ready to go into it or whatever, right? For whatever reason. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, you described that beautifully.
thank you. I think it's funny too. Like we do like with some of my clients especially, we will laugh because I've got it. I could show you, like the manual is literally this thick,
Right.
and we'll pick these like strands out that they're all completely relevant. to whatever the core kind of
Mhm.
thing that we're healing is. And it's just like, they're like, oh my God, like what? And you just have to laugh about it. And you're like, yeah, 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 this is what we do.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the surrender, right? To be able to facilitate these healings, you have to surrender because it doesn't make logical sense. Like, it might all connect later, but at first it's just this like, "Okay, this is where we're going," kind of thing, right?
Yeah, like, and you just have to trust. And you know what? It is what it is, and it always. Well, I think it literally does always just tie back into whatever the root
Mm,
thing may have been. Like, I
right.
don't know. It's great. I love it.
Um, what do you think What do you think there are misconceptions or misunderstandings about, this type of healing, I'm trying to think of how you describe light body, this remembering, this activation, that's what you're referring to in the soul contract readings. What do you think are some of the misconceptions or the misunderstandings around doing this sort of healing work or activation work?
Yeah, I think there's still. I think. Oh, I think there's quite a lot. I think people think it could be woo woo, or there's two sides of it. I think there's the practitioner side, and I think there's the client side of things. And sometimes I think politeness can be a bit of a mask or humor, like in
Okay.
British culture, we deflect from depth of vulnerability. And
Hmm.
a lot of people will find it easier to go, "Oh, that's a bit out there, isn't it?" than kind of give it a go. There's
Hmm. Hmm.
culturally, we've been conditioned to think that this is the correct way, that pharmaceuticals and drugs will fix a person, and
Right.
that psychology has been written by these amazing men, because it's always men, right? Like,
Right.
and this will get to the heart of things and fix things. And it's like, okay, and who are these people that are deciding that this is correct? It's but that's unfortunately the way people think of things when they're going to like their doctors, or they're going to their counselors or to the psychologist. That these are prescribed and prescriptive methods, and they're
Hmm.
trusted, you know
Right.
and what we do is, well, we still operate in very similar ways. It's the
Hmm.
same. We're holding space for the person, we're talking, we're going into these issues. It's not necessarily been recognized, by the kind of bodies
Right.
which give people this false kind of like confidence, I guess, in a system.
Right.
And yeah, so I think there's like, and for some people they can get over that, but they might have like a fear around maybe being judged as well for like stepping outside of those normal prescriptive methods.
Right.
And whether that could be class conditioning, religious guilt, or like their own internalized voice, it people kind of self-censor before they even like begin this healing journey. And you know and especially when you look, like I was saying earlier, about the commercialization of the spiritual. Everyone has to have like massive crystals in their house, and
Right.
spend their
Right.
time doing like sound bowls. It's like it can feel inaccessible or inauthentic to a lot of people, perhaps. I think that could be.
Right, people pick up on that, yeah.
Yes, I think that could be like, because also it's been positioned like that as well. you know
Mm,
it, Advertising and marketing is a very, very clever thing. You
mhm,
can. And a lot of the people who are kind of famous for this sort of thing are very polarizing. You get people like Teal Swan, who
right.
obviously has an understanding of this, but my God, I mean, no, thank you. Keep her the fuck away from me. Nothing. Don't want anything to do with that crazy bitch. Like, no, thank you. It's like complete abuse of power. Like, she's
Right,
very insightful, and
right.
I can see that, but no thanks.
Mm,
And so
right, and then
these are the
y
people in like TV, or you get like your Mystic Megs, and it's kind of a joke. And
right,
all people associate it with witchcraft or the occult, and we know,
mhm,
you know all of that kind of stuff.
mm. So if you could set the record straight on a few things, what would you say about the woo-woo, or, just to help people have a little bit different perspective, bring some context to it?
Yeah, I think you've got to find a practitioner, and you've got to find people that resonate with you, that you can relate to.
Okay.
And I think that's very important. I mean, for the whole woo woo thing is just, I mean, I think it's silly. I don't. You have to find what feels true to you. I'm not here to
Mm,
pass judgment on people who are like doing certain things or who aren't. For me, it's not what I'm looking for.
mhm.
I'm open minded to it, but you've just got to do what feels right for you. Because I think when you do that, then that's how you kind of transform. You're not trying to change other people in that respect. It's just when people are kind of embodying what works for them or their truth, it gives other people then permission to kind of do the same.
Right. Yeah.
So, if one person's kind of figured out, like for the healing, like just figure out what works for you. Maybe that is that you just do something which is nothing to do with, the multidimensional layers of healing. That's
Right.
okay. Maybe
Mhm.
that's not for you.
Right.
But, for me, that was kind of more important than just doing the kind of prescribed counseling. Counseling's
Mhm.
great. It's helped me with certain things, but it didn't go deep enough.
Right.
So I'm looking for a different approach, and I think every single person needs to kind of find out what the approach is that works for them, and but be open minded and give it a go. Try it out because you can always learn something from somebody. There's always something that you're going to take that's going to make some sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
thank you. Appreciate that. Do you have, a breakthrough story from a client maybe? Obviously, we wanna keep confidentiality, but
Yeah, I don't want to like say anything too. I mean, yeah, I have to be very careful not to like make it. We know about the GDPR laws.
mm,
Um, what's a really good one?
even in a
I'll tell you
general
what.
way.
There is a good one actually because you were talking about vulnerability earlier on, and
Mhm.
I have a client, and she's amazing, like she's brilliant. But she's like, when we first kind of spoke and when we first got together, she was almost like a little bit like, okay, what's going on here? Because I've spoken to other people before and I didn't get what I needed. And she didn't
Mm,
necessarily say it in those words. It wasn't as harsh as that, but that's what she was thinking. And
right.
like, and it was quite funny. And by the end of the session, she was like, okay, great. And she didn't really give anything away. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. Nice to meet you. Gave nothing away. And then literally we got off the call and she was like, so she'd like messaged me and she was like, so when can I book the next one in? And I was like, oh, okay. And then, so like we booked the next one in. It was the same thing again. It was like, walls were up. And I was like,
Mhm,
okay, let's just go with this. And this happened for maybe 5 or 6 sessions, and it was just, I wasn't getting anything. And then eventually, I think it was like, after like maybe 3 or 4 months of like working together, it was like she'd just start to open up, and there were things that would come up in the charts that she didn't want to. She was like, "No, that doesn't relate to me. That's."
mm,
But I felt like I'm going to keep working with this woman because I recognize some of this, and I know that she's very, very vulnerable, and she's very
mm,
sensitive, and
mm,
that this is a protective mask. This is what she's doing, and it took a long time. Um, but now she's so open, like so open, and
mhm,
it's the whole thing with the vulnerability, like she's visibly like softened, and like she'll like put like loads of kisses on the end of messages now, and it's like, oh, hello. It's like, and she's happier, and that's really, really nice because when you start, you're like, oh god, is this okay? Is this what she needs? Am I the right person? And then over time it's like, okay, yeah, I get why we're working together.
mm.
So it's, yeah, there's
Right,
there's
right.
there's lots of stories. I don't really want to like, yeah, go into too many, but it's like we
Mm,
do this as well because it, like you were saying earlier, it is nice when you can like just give somebody a bit of a, I I understand what you're saying. I don't think you're crazy. This doesn't sound daft.
mm,
Trust me, we get it. It's okay. Just talk about it, and don't be afraid to just say how you feel because yeah, we do understand it. A lot
right.
of people come in going, "Oh my god, I sound crazy," or "You're going to think I'm insane," and it's like, No, not at all.
Hmm. How how do you see the importance of feeling in the body?
Hmm. I think it's hugely important. Like, I do think we're conditioned. I don't know
Mm,
if it's everybody, but in the West, we are completely conditioned to disassociate from our body.
right.
And, whether that's numbing it or just even sitting at like a desk. It's like there's like no flow of energy, and our minds are working so quickly, but then our bodies are just like we're exhausted. And it was really telling for me again at the start of lockdown. I had this woman staying over for a couple of days. It was just like a date, and um, we were like, I couldn't get out of my head, and I knew there was something wrong because we were like gonna have sex, and she was just like, "Are you okay? Like, you're just not really into this." And I was like, I realized in that moment, oh my god, like I'm so disconnected from my body right now, and it was the
Mm,
start of like the COVID thing, and a lot was going on, and it was a lot to consume, and it really did a number on me. And I was like, I'm not having this. This is the way. No way am I going to be okay with this. But she was right. I was like, you know what I mean? Like basic things that just stopped feeling good. It was almost like an effort to do this and to have to switch the brain off and to get into the feeling of something that you wanted to do. And I think it's quite scary. Like I do Tai Chi now, like I every day, like because it's like the meditation, but it's moving the flow of the body. And martial arts and eating healthily, like not, I'm a vegan, that works for me. It's not going to work for everyone. That's you do what you
right.
want, everybody. But like for me, that really, really works for me. And
Mm, mhm,
I think when people are like on like heavy sugar diets, there's loads of studies about it. And
mhm,
we're kind of fed all these things that are bad for us, and it's like everything we consume, like microplastics, everything is like literally trying to like dull us and make us like apathetic and inactive. And but I do think like there has to be like you've got to connect in with the body, because when your body is telling you in your solar plexus that something's not right, and you can't feel that because you're disconnected, like
right.
it's so bad. It's so bad. And
Yeah, it's a different communication from the body, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, and everyone experiences things differently, but I really think in different ways the soul communicates with us through our bodies, through the sensations. Right? There's other things, there's trauma and there's all the other stuff that communicates too. And especially in the beginning, I think it's difficult to figure out which is which. But yeah, that was something, as a therapist, training in divine healing that really, I guess it helped me trust the system.
Mm.
The fact that so much was the body, and feeling, and um, I mean, it's energy, right? So much of our difficulties are is trapped energy, and there's other things tied to it. But w- if we can't feel the energy, if we're not connected to it, then how do we change? We can't change something we're not aware of. So yeah, thank
And
you.
that's like with the healing, that you said there, you you can visibly see people changing. They
Mm,
when these
hmm.
programs are releasing, you have clients who are like, which was, the first time it happened, it was terrifying. I was like, oh God, is she having an epileptic fit? But they're
Right.
like they're physically jolting around, and you can see the programs releasing when you feel it yourself. You
Yeah.
experience hot, you experience cold, it's a physical change. It's not just the
Right.
emotional. It's you
Right.
release those programs.
Right. And we're learning a lot about that in therapies too, right? Like, um, Bessel, what's his name? Bessel van der Kolk. It's whole the body keeps the score, right? Is all about how we hold trauma in our bodies. And Peter Levine's work, he talks about this the shaking. That's how we release a lot of our trauma.
Yeah.
And sometimes our clients will do that, and then to have it, yeah, mirrored in this healing of these healing modalities that to me that's like yes, that all makes sense to me.
Yeah, it is
Um,
energy, like you say, and it's that transference. It's brilliant when because you under as a healer, you have to undergo it yourself, right?
right, right,
You can't just give it out to people and not do it for yourself. That's
right.
crazy. And you kind of feel it. You do feel it. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's so real, and I think that really does help people to be like, okay, this is very visceral and I've
Mm,
experienced something now.
right,
So whatever they're talking about, it's having an effect because I'm physically feeling this in my body.
right.
So it solidifies kind of what we do, which is nice. It's a bit
Mm,
of a helping hand in that respect.
yeah. So when you're working with someone, and also I would say in your personal life as well, how do you strike the balance between guiding someone and allowing them to discover their own answers?
Mm, yeah, you'll know this. There's a whole thing about being able to, you'll bring something up, and it might be like a core issue or a wound or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And you want them first to just take a moment to be still, to sit with that, to connect to that, to
Hmm.
feel where it is in the body, if it's in their
Yeah.
left knee or if it's, because
Right.
we also like work with meridians, we work with like lots of different, there's so many facets to what we do, but
There
you
is.
need them to like connect in the body, and
Hmm.
then think about it. Think about like whatever this core wound might be. It might be a hatred of women, for example, and
Right.
where do they feel that? How do they feel that? How is that played out in their life? You know, and what's important is that they can connect with it and they can connect the emotional attachment to this.
Hmm.
But what you don't want them to do is to go into a story with it, because
Right.
while you want to hear where it's played out and the effect it's had so that it's kind of reminding them of how this issue relates to them, you don't want them to go into a big story because that's where the ego takes over.
Mm.
And that's where it starts to create this narrative or these beliefs, that then become held on to as well. So there's a fine line, and some people they'll try and like go off even when you're like halfway through doing something. They'll try and divert you back into this
Right.
narrative. And I think on that I'm quite like it's hard because you can't see yourself, but I'd imagine I'm quite like, no, stop. We're going back.
Right.
Don't turn
Right.
this into a narrative. It's not about the story. Let go of the story. Hold on to the feeling, and
Right.
whatever that anger or sorrow or, often it's, whatever it might be that you're
Hmm.
really holding on to. And let's go, if
Hmm.
it's anger, let's go beneath that. Let's go into this
Mm.
next bit now, and were your needs met? What
Right.
is it, and it's like it's kind of like allowing them to feel and to
Hmm.
explore, but not to run off with the narrative, because then it's just pure ego.
Right. Right. And I think I take a bit of a softer approach, right, from my training, and I understand that the power of choice. I always give
Yeah,
my clients choice, like, "Hey, I notice you're doing this. Can we go back to this?" Right? And almost every time someone will. But
if it's one.
You're right. There is the ego gets in there, and it like telling the story is safer than feeling,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And staying connected with that uncomfortable feeling. It's not thoughts that are uncomfortable, it's the sensations that are connected with that thing. And so that's the thing that has the potential for the healing in the way I see it. But it's also the thing that we avoid all of this stuff because it feels terrible sometimes or it feels hard.
yeah. You're completely right. I mean, it's everyone's slightly different, so they probably got their own reason for doing it. But there's
Right.
the disconnection. They like forget that kind of, they're living in a fear or control state of something because they're quite disconnected. Or some
Mhm.
people genuinely might feel like shame about the fact that they
Right.
feel that way. They
Right.
might not want to feel like that, but they can't, or they feel like their wounds are wrong and that they shouldn't feel or struggle. And it keeps them kind of again isolated by
Totally.
this
Yeah,
narrative. So
yeah, shame is this tricky thing that, like, makes us feel bad about feeling bad, right? It's a
yeah,
shame is one of the sneakiest things, I think.
it's it's so true. We're such weird creatures, aren't we?
We really are. We really So there's one thing that I wanted to come back to, but I've forgotten, but there's another one I remember. Hopefully the other one will come back to me. But a few minutes ago you were talking about programs.
Hmm.
You know, these programs coming up in people. And I know what that means, right, from the training. But I wonder if you could just describe that for the listeners so they have a sense of what that means.
Yeah, of course. Using the lingo. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
No, no, not at all. This is good. Like people get to hear about it. So I'm glad these things come in.
Yeah, so in the kind of healing that Joel and I do, we call them programs for want of a better word, to be honest. It's there's different kind of, not problems, not issues, but kind of wounds that that you want to work on. So we might say a program is a traumatic past life death, for example.
Hmm.
You might be really, really frightened or nervous around fire, and nothing's happened in this life, but there's a reason that you have this kind of innate reaction of like fear or blind panic to certain things. And that might be because you're running a program from like a past life or from something else that's going on, and it's affecting your day-to-day reality. um, and this could be anything. You might have witnessed a car accident, and that in your life now, and that's kind of a one you can understand. But there might be things that are running from different timelines, or that you've brought in from a past life. And it's just kind of understanding that. So programs are kind of just what we name these different kind of core issues that come up to be worked on.
Right. Like patterns of unresolved things that are still functioning for a
Yeah,
person, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually much more succinct.
No, no, I think both are good. I appreciate yours.
That was way better.
Because
Yeah, I like
and
that.
the example is good. Like these can be anything like um just being uncomfortable around a certain person. Maybe we have a past life experience with that person and it didn't end well. Maybe they killed us in a past life or whatever it is, right? And
Yeah,
so it's uncovering these kind of the dance of the energies, and once we release it, then it's all of a sudden like not there anymore,
yeah. And
right?
that's it. And when we say programs as well, that this is it. When we kind of work through that, and there's a kind of a resolve, or at least a layer of that has gone. That's when the kind of people can shake, or they feel the heat or the cold in the body, and
Right,
that's the kind of idea of it leaving. Well, often it's a belief. We come up
right,
time and
yeah,
time again. These programs are beliefs that people hold within them. Like, I am unworthy of love, for example. So what we'll do is we'll look into that and where that's coming from, and often we'll remove that one program, but we'll restructure a new belief, which is I am
right,
worthy of love.
right,
And
right.
it's to kind of believe that again. And once that program's removed, this is the new one coming in now, and we kind of work like that, don't we? It's
Yeah, there's often multiple layers to these things, so there might be a few things that have happened in everything that our soul's connected to, and we sort of sort it out and unwind it, right? I kind of see it as like we're tied up and we're just unwinding, and a lot of that is through feeling, right? That's the release. So yeah, thank you for that. There was one other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to um yeah, I mean, divine healing, there's so many different avenues, right? Like it's 1,000 pages or whatever, all
yeah,
5 levels.
yeah. There's so much. There's so much.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about specific things, but
It's almost like, yeah, it's the overwhelm. It's like I do this all the time, and it's like I can't think of a single program, right?
right,
There's so
right,
many. Basically, anything you can pretty much come up against, is
Right, there
kind
could
of
be
fun.
archetypal, like, themes
Oh my god, yeah, they've got
like,
yo-yo,
patterns, right?
they've got every kind of, let me go and grab a folder.
Bir there's birth stuff and
Everything. You've got the
I'm trying
I
to think of
Ching in there, you've got, so for context,
right, okay.
this is what 5 levels of divine healing looks like.
Right.
So yeah, it's very robust, isn't it? Let's be honest. And
It is very robust, and I
God,
really appreciate how it's laid out, how it's organized, right? I mean, it's kind of chaos, but it's organized chaos.
absolutely. I think that's a really good way to describe it. I mean, yeah, like just looking at this, we've got energy in the subtle bodies, releasing blocks to positive living, sabotages, traumas, universal archetypes. We've got key psychological conflicts, judgments and beliefs, hidden subconscious ego agendas, fears, phobias, emotions, states, chakra functions. It's like, and this is just like the first like 100 pages. So it's,
Right, right. And so there's all these charts, and then how I mean, can you describe a little bit about how you work? I mean, you don't have to give all the nuts and bolts, but just kind of generally, right? You work intuitively.
oh, I'm fully intuitively just, yeah, we'll open up the session. So we'll do an opening where we'll call in the team,
Mhm.
just ask that we can connect energetically with me and the client. Um, and then I'll just listen to be told. I get a lot of hearing, so I'm
Mhm.
literally like, they'll just whisper in my ear, or I'll know. They'll
Mhm.
say like page 92, and I'll be like, okay, cool, which level? And they'll be like, oh, level 3, and I'll be okay. So we'll go to like level 3, page 92, and whatever that might be. And I'm just intuitive. I just go with what is instinctual, and because that's what I trust is being told.
Right.
Even when sometimes somebody might say something to you, and you're looking at a chart, and you're like, it might be, I don't know, I get like told number 16 of 20 variables, like 20 causes of something. And I'll be like, but 19 looks way more relevant to what this person's been talking about. And I'll be like, no, do what you're told, like 16. I'm like, okay. And then it'll unravel into the fact that actually this
Mm,
is the thing
mm.
that's needed, even though something else on the surface may appear more
Right,
relevant.
right, right.
Yeah.
So then each chart has all these different options of like things you can explore, and you work through that intuitively, and then you're having a conversation with the client, right?
Yeah. So what we'll do is there might be like a vow that needs to be broken.
Okay.
And what we'll do is I'll work with the client to restructure that vow or to connect with it. And they will basically, we do things called command codes, don't we? Which is,
Mm,
you can say, it's basically, I command this, I am this. I'm going to break this vow pattern pertaining to this, 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 and this. I ask this to be brought in. And the
mm,
client will repeat this because it's more powerful in their voice, coming from them.
right,
And it's basically sending out, people talk about manifesting. This is sending out like a clear command into the universe that I am no longer willing to accept this negative belief, and this is now what I want to say, to bring it in to help me. I'm
right.
done with this. I want this program done. And yeah.
Yeah, it's ask and receive, right? Like we
Yeah.
are way more powerful beings and creators than most people realize. That's one thing I really got from doing this training is like we have way more power than we realize. If the powers, those in power sort of speak in societies, and if people got wind of this, they'd be in trouble because we can create our realities. We can create our lives in such powerful ways.
It's so true. I mean, there are texts there that have been suppressed, we've
Right.
been told this so many times. There are, if you
Hmm.
read around subjects, it's like, it's all about the going within. It's all about connecting, from within.
Right.
But obviously, the world doesn't like that, because then you're not going to a third party, to
Right, right.
listen to this.
They want you focused on some external authority rather than your own internal.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because people, I do think there's more people that are open to this.
Hmm.
You can go through this process, or you can just carry on as you are, but everyone's going to respond differently, and it can be with fear or it can be with awareness. But there, like you say, there's this huge potential for this, like positive change in people's lives, and I do think that it's probably
Right.
never been more accessible. That is one good thing
Mm.
about the internet. We
Yeah. Yeah,
we
for sure.
can access these books, we can access people who understand these things, and we can be a bit
Yeah.
more like open-minded to things that we might not have had access to before.
Right, it's a lot more difficult to restrict. There's still restrictions, but it's a lot more open, yeah. Um, One last thing that came to mind as we were talking about divine healing that I really appreciate is the integration.
Mm,
So it's like I remember it being described as a wave, and it's the same often when I'm working with my clients. We often intense emotions will only last like maybe 90 seconds. Sometimes when we're releasing trauma, it might be a bit longer, but we go through these waves. So we feel something intensely, and then we often connect the information around it. We gain understanding. In divine healing, there's these integrative charts, right? You want to mention that?
yes, it's just like the zap codes and things.
Yeah, the supportive, like the supportive energy. So you go through this big heavy thing and you're releasing all this energy, and then there's these supportive energies, even the angels and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
those.
it's yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, okay, you go through these programs, and a lot of them are really hard hitting. You might have been holding on to this program that's like a core belief of yours for a
Right.
long time, and it's come up because it's ready. Things only come up when they're ready to be
Right.
released.
It's not a forced thing.
No, absolutely not. And so you've got to be very gentle with people when you're doing this.
Absolutely.
But there are, yeah, when this kind of goes, it's just, it is like a wave. Like you say, it's a wave, it's
Mm.
going, and you can fill up with love. And it is very emotional. People will cry, you know, or
Right.
they'll be like, oh God, I feel so light. It's like something has literally been lifted. I mean, it
Mm.
has, but,
Right.
they,
Right.
they
They
actually
feel
feel
it. Yeah.
that. And there's so many different things as well. I mean, you've got like Bach and Bailey flower essences. There's so many things that you can do to help then the body adjust, because it's
Right.
not
Yeah.
just an emotional feeling. It might be that maybe you need some salt. It might be that simple, that you need to infuse certain frequencies and encodements
Right.
back into the body. Um, and again,
Yeah.
that's
That. Yeah. They're healing frequencies. Really, is what. Right.
yeah, and it's I could just be feeling a bit run down or a bit tired, and I can just quickly open a quick space, go in, do a quick zap code on myself,
Mm.
and be like, okay, this is this is great. It's you can do that. That's one of the benefits of like doing this work. You can like quickly sort
Right.
yourself
Working on
out as well.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really nice.
It
Or
is.
like,
It is.
or
I've
like
done a
if a
lot of.
friend, something's happened, you'd be like, you've got half an hour spare, cool.
Right.
You can do that.
Right. It is a very supportive system, and like for me, one of my biggest challenges in my growth has been actually the difficulty of allowing myself to feel good.
Mm,
So sometimes feeling bad or hard things were actually easier or more, comfortable for me than actually feeling the good stuff. And that's not true anymore, but it was.
mm.
So yeah,
Kind of an
there's
alien
this real
feeling.
balance. Yeah. What's that?
Saying it's kind of an alien feeling, isn't it, initially, when it's if you're
Yeah.
not used to doing that. And
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we learn these things through, society, what we see in our families. Oh, I think we were talking about the conditioning and just what we observe, what we experience in our families and our seeing it, watching our parents. Like you've given lots of examples of how your parents were, and we take these things on because that's the model of how to be a human being we have, right? We look as kids, we look to the grown-ups that are supposed to know, how this whole thing works, and often they don't. They don't. And then we get these ideas of like, yeah, we're not supposed to feel.
yeah,
Anytime I noticed my mom, right, and I'm just using this example, I'm not saying this is
yeah, yeah.
true, but like, whenever I noticed this adult starting to feel something, I noticed they changed the subject,
Hmm.
or they told us to not worry about it, or sent us away, and then we learn that behavior of how to avoid. And so this whole and our whole society. has been built that way
Yeah.
in many ways.
It's just huge trauma, isn't it? It's like
Hmm.
this whole collective, and it's like a whole model, basically the world. And
Yeah.
I think the good thing about what we do, and I really do like love this, is that if we can just kind of like, we don't have to fix things for people,
Right.
but just being present with somebody, like if they're in pain, or they just want to talk, we don't have to necessarily try and change it. But if we're just there for them and allow them to
Mm.
kind of question or feel or explore, and maybe, yeah, we've got these tools that we can, or ideas, we're not giving them answers, we're just kind of like helping them to just be in that space, and
Right.
feel comfortable that your parents were probably trying to like look after you by telling you to harden up, but actually it's been
Right.
really detrimental in many other ways.
They
It's
they mean well, they just,
Yeah,
they don't know any better. They
exactly. And
mean well. Yeah.
it is, when we have clients, because you'll be the same, we work with clients of lots of different ages. Sometimes when you've been holding on to like a pattern or something for a longer time, it's you find that when they give that up or they release that, that might be the only thing you do in like a full hour, might just be to release this one program, because it's been such an embedded belief in their system that
Right.
it's really like it's a huge shock and a change for them. um, and you find that with people who've maybe like grown up for a longer time, like older clients perhaps,
Mhm.
because these are things they've had for so long and held on to. I always kind of, I'm much more gentle with them, just to take it
Mm.
easy, because even if they want to kind of speed ahead,
Right.
actually you've got to be careful. Whereas somebody who's 20 might not have really adopted that belief for so long. It's something that's not really theirs, and it's kind of relatively new, and
Mhm.
it's guiding them a bit because they're a bit uncertain at this time, but
Right.
it's not as necessarily deeply as embedded. I mean, everyone's
Right, it's not
different.
anchored inside of them, and,
Yeah.
it's easier to have a new perspective or unlearn what they've learned, for sure,
Mm.
for sure. Um, so I wanna shift to talking about the world.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe we'll mix a little bit of society in here, but, do you think do you think the world is changing? Are we evolving? Is there transformation happening? And, what do you think about all that?
Yes, I think absolutely we are. I mean, it's paradoxical, isn't it? Because
Mm,
in some respects, some things are not getting worse, but things are being exposed, right? We
right.
are inundated with exposure. We're seeing corruption, injustice, division. Like, none of this is new. None of it is new, but it's so visible now. I
Right,
mean, you've got a young son, and, I can't imagine being a parent right now, because the world it's chaotic, right? But
right,
the thing with all of this is it can feel like we're in decline, and it can feel like, oh my god, what is going on? Society's falling apart around us. There's so much war, there's famine, it's awful. But this is a weird like part of the healing.
mm,
If you look at things, you can't transform what you don't acknowledge. So even though it feels very, very painful, there's also hope in that. So shadow coming into light is progress, even if you don't feel it in the moment. And you can see it around us, like the systems are crumbling. It's like, and they're all kind of crumbling at once. I
yes,
don't
they
want to
are.
go like, I don't want to cause like a 1923 hyperinflation crash, but banking, housing, like, just care for people, like food isn't, migration crisis with people having
Right,
to leave countries, and all of this is kind of coming to a head. You've got billionaires like Bill Gates buying up all the land, and then you've got like AI's data centers being built, and people being put out of a job, but they're not being. It's crazy,
right,
it is
yeah,
chaos.
there's
But we've got to remember this is that like it's going to be progress. It might be difficult for some time. It might be different from what we know, but whether we go through it or destroy ourselves, that's completely on how we respond. So
mm,
there's a potential for positive evolution,
Okay.
but
I feel
it
the same way.
yeah, I mean, we all get sucked into it sometimes, and there's like, oh my god, and I'm like, no, don't feel that sense of dread right now. Stay in the
Right.
now. Everything's okay for me right now. It's not for a lot of people, but it's
Right. And there are a lot of people, I think, anchoring that. We're okay. We're going to be okay. Maybe people like you that can kind of see where this is potentially going, right? There's no guarantees, of course, but um,
oh, I've
I'm
seen
like
for a
you.
long time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And there are people that have seen it for a long time, and I, I think I've recently come out of some of the fear around that for myself, but I've seen it for a long time. So I could see it, but I still didn't fully trust. Whereas that's changed more recently, I'd say for me. Um, it's like the dark night of the soul for the people of Earth, essentially.
yeah,
Right.
but there is a shift. There's
Mm-hmm.
even communities. People are coming together in communities again, and maybe not physical ones, as in where they live, but even if it's online,
Right.
it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different kind of community to how it used to look, where it used to be kind of, we didn't have this access to the wide world. Our community was our street, or our town, or our county, or and
Right.
it's different now. It's just a different way. It is more global, whether people like
Yeah.
that or not, it is. And so different people, different communities are forming in a new way, um, which is interesting. My mum said that years ago. I think it was like 2002, and she just said, "I can already
Mm.
tell you it's going to happen." She's like, "Technology is going to go off like this, and then people aren't going to actually like it. They're going to want to go and return back to like gardening and to
Mm.
growing food and vegetables." And yeah, she was spot on.
Totally. Yeah.
Like,
Totally. Well, you did say that your mom was psychic, right? So it
yeah,
makes
my
sense
my
that she
dad
could see those patterns, right? Your dad.
too, but he's fear based. But
Right. And there's a difference. Like it's one thing to see it, and there's another to fully kind of trust and embody it.
yeah,
And everyone is at different stages of that experience.
true.
And what what would you say to people who are realizing this maybe but still fearful, or in the middle of the process of kind of coming to terms with all of it? What
Hmm,
sorts of things might you share with someone?
interesting. Yeah, hmm, it's really hard to know what to sort of tell somebody.
Right.
I think I think just relating to them helps.
Hmm.
Just understanding what they're trying to say to you and listening, like really listening to them. Just so that they feel that they can share for a start, because a lot of people aren't used to doing that. To really opening up, and
Right.
if there's anything that you can help with, I think people learning to question and to feel safe in questioning is good. Feeling, exploring, all of that kind of stuff is really good. But and just like, yeah, I mean, it's really hard actually. I don't really, I don't think I'm great at giving people advice. I
Hmm.
just kind of, I just maybe encourage them to listen to like their own bodies, and yeah, I think
Well,
listening.
okay. What maybe not so much advice, but just like speaking from your own experience. How what sort of perspectives, or what has helped you come to be at peace with what's happening in the world? Having this perspective of like, yes, it's really bad right now, and these things are coming up, but
Mm,
being able to hold this unknowing or experience of like, but we are headed in a direction that can be really good.
yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, I would say, okay, so acknowledging we're at a tipping point. Like, we are
Okay.
we're at the crux of something very, and we signed up to be here, right? Like we wanted to
Right.
be here at this time.
Right.
Sometimes God only knows why. And like
That's a good point.
maybe we're all masochists. Who knows? But like, but I think what's important is there's a lot of potential, and I think that it's easy to become disheartened when we're kind of fed so much of this all the time and all of the constant streams. I think it's important to say to be aware, to remember that what we're seeing is not necessarily what is the truth.
Right.
Like you were saying about the vulnerability, I think try and keep soft and stay in like
Mm.
connection, like to yourself, to the people around you, to your own truth. Be in nature. Always be in nature if you can, like because
Yeah.
it's just it changes everybody's mood. And just kind of remember that like even though things might change and that can be scary for a lot of people, that there is a future that's worth working towards and going into.
Mm.
And I think maybe just remembering that we're not that we do have power. Like an individual can have a huge kind of ripple effect, you know. It's really funny because I was writing my philosophy exam earlier for my grading for martial arts, and there's this whole idea of like shine a spotlight at your feet. And there's this guy Doshin So who is like he basically taught Shirinji Kempo. That's the martial art I'm doing, and he
Okay.
said you start with yourself. You make a conscious decision that you want to become a better person. Whether that's training your it's like healthy body, healthy mind, and you kind of become the change you want to see in yourself, and then you slowly that will affect your friends. You start then with, and that will then widen out to their friends, and there's this kind of like ripple effect that takes place. And this was after
Mm.
the Second World War, and he'd seen the kind of devastation that had befallen like so many places. And he'd only teach martial arts to people if they also went and understood the kind of philosophical ideas, and he taught a lot of the
Mm.
Buddhism side of things.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because actually there's so many crossovers with the things I'm learning. And
Right.
it's just like it's true. If you can kind of, okay, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand up for. You can't stand up for everything. It's people who do that and post every bloody thing online, like you can't commit to like 76 causes, as wrong as some of them may feel and be. You can't, it's ineffective.
Mm.
But if you
Mhm.
can live by some real truths and genuinely like do something to make a difference, even if it's small or seemingly small, and that spreads out, that's how change can kind of happen, I think.
Mm.
And listening, like stopping all this noise and just listening to what feels true to you, that can be like one of the most like radical acts, I think, of transformation and love, is connecting in with what feels real genuinely to you,
Mhm.
and what you could perhaps do if that is something that you can work on.
Yeah. Yeah, beautifully said, thank you. It reminds me of something you shared a little while ago, in this conversation around that, I think it was I guess it's related to that client that you shared about the wall and just showing up for them, and also around divine healing, around sometimes just showing up and caring about someone is a radically different new experience for someone, and it has real impact even if it doesn't show up right away, right? Just
Yeah,
being you and showing up and being curious about people, like genuinely wanting to understand their perspective even if it disagrees with your perspective, and kind of not intentionally but creating this experience where people feel seen and heard and like you actually care can be radically different than everything they've experienced in their life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even like if they're going through a tough time and you might not know what to say, but if you
Mhm.
just say, look, I recognize you're going through some shit right now and I love
Ab
you, and it's
Yeah.
temporary. That's like that might be all they could be like, yeah, thanks, I just needed to hear that.
Right,
It could be
right.
that simple.
Empathy, that's empathy, right? Yeah. Okay. I want to ask a few wrap up questions. So I think we're nearing the end here.
Okay.
Appreciate you being on here speaking with me for this long.
No, thank you.
Um,
You had a sore throat earlier, so
yeah,
thank
well,
you.
I was super excited about this conversation. I think that helped come shift the energies around for me. So thank you. Um, but what would you say are you're most grateful, or what are a few of the things you're most grateful for in your journey?
This one, yeah, this is a really easy one. It's the people, like the people who I've met, the people who've just kind of come out of thin air and appeared
Mm,
when I needed them.
mm,
But as like we kind of mentioned earlier, like the community of people, like there's so many people that like have helped me at my darkest times, and you know, and also the kind of like the so many like the Suzanne like doing her like meditation courses, or just having a chat with Pam, and like Val of course, and Charlotte, like Nicholas, Almira, the people who've helped me to learn the kind of work that that I could help myself as well. Just all the people who've done that, and also the people who I've met since, and just like there's so many just people, basically so many people.
okay. Okay.
But also I think for my journey, I like all the fun stuff. I love all this. I get a kick out of all the stupid synchronicities. Like all the signs, and they're just from spirit. Like and like all the people that I work with. The people that keep coming back, who trust me, and like the souls that
Mm,
show up, who are open and vulnerable, and like that I hopefully can help them, a
right.
little bit, or just give them a nudge, like so many people have for me, in their own journey. That's 100%.
Yeah. There is a lot that you get as a healer, right? Same as a therapist. You get to sit with people in some really dark places, but also some really vulnerable places, and it's like one of the best things for me. I
Yeah.
hear that in what you're saying too.
It's it's nice to be able to have kind of formalized it in a way, like
Mm,
this is like I have a full-time job, this is
mm-hmm.
it's a big thing to do on top of that.
Right.
And there's a reason, like I have to do it. It's like it was going to happen at some point. I guess 2020 was just like, okay, that was like a great reset kind of year for people. But
Mm,
like, I've had like my whole life, I've had people like coming up to me like asking for help, and always just strangers on the street, even when I was like a young kid. And back then I did not know how to do that, because I was a child. Like, no one
right.
had taught me. So
Yeah.
but that's never stopped, that's never
Mm,
stopped. Like I so it's like it's kind of like something that I just have to do, and that's I love doing it. Although sometimes, like when I've had a long day at work, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. But every time, like you come away feeling really good doing what we do.
mm, mm. Yeah. What's the best piece of advice or wisdom that you've ever received?
So it's not very spiritual, but it is. Well, actually, there's two bits of advice that I really like.
Okay.
One was from my friend Chloe when I was like 23, and her bit of advice was, "Worse things happen to better people." It's just and I love that, because it's like, yeah, get over yourself. You know what? She's right. Like she's literally right. There was always something worse happening to somebody better. Like it's, I love that. It just makes me laugh.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
and the next bit of advice, my dad's only really give. I can't really think of much advice he's given me, but one of them was, "Don't have someone else's heart attack,"
I get that. At first, it's like, "What?"
which I also really like.
Yeah, how do you take that? Like, I think I understand it, but what does that mean to you?
I think I was talking about like work being a bit stressful, and he's
Okay.
right. It's like, yeah, this isn't my company. I don't have their heart attack. Like, don't worry about it. Just
Right. Right.
So yeah, they're they're probably
Don't
the
take on
best.
all of their stress and everything. It's
Yeah,
not worth it. Okay.
and as healers, actually, we we've learned at some point to like put up boundaries. I guess he wasn't
Mm.
talking about that. He was being very, very to the point. Literally, do not have their heart attack. But but I guess like in the wider scope of what we do,
Right.
yeah, we've had to learn to kind of put those boundaries up. And
Yeah.
again, this is why this works good to like formulate it so that somebody comes in for a session and you work and then it's over,
Right.
and you go back to your life and you don't take on their patterns, because that's
Right.
something that you know I think we all do or did when we were younger.
Yeah, and we're modeling that for our clients too, right?
Hmm.
How to set boundaries and that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What question do you wish people would ask you more often?
Mhm. I always struggle with it. I This is a hard one. What question do I kind of wish people would? I don't know. Don't know. I really struggle with this because I kind of just want people to question for themselves.
Okay.
Like um I mean, there's the obvious stuff. Like, I'd love somebody to ask me about like my favorite Tool album, or like like
Okay.
ask me questions about Shakespeare. Like, oh my god, please! Like, no one asks me these things. But I think
Okay.
like
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. In like terms of healing and things like that, I I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know, Joel. That's a
It's
hard
an
one.
interesting question, isn't it? You gave some good answers though, and it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Um, so before we finish, is there anything else that you would want to share with my audience, with people out there listening, watching?
I don't know. Like, I think if they're still listening after this really lengthy interview, then I'd like to thank them. Um,
Hmm. I agree. I appreciate that. Yeah.
they've got some serious resilience and stamina. I think maybe if they are, then maybe some things resonated with what we've talked about.
Hmm.
And if they do want to reach out to either you or myself, then that
Hmm.
absolutely, I'm open to that. I mean, that's nice.
Yeah. How do people reach out to you? What's the best way?
I think just dropping me a message on Facebook is the best way. I'll just respond
Okay.
to like a message on Facebook or my email,
Okay.
which
I can put that in the comments, so if you want.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, my email is fine. That's probably the best way.
Okay. Okay. Um, and one last question. If you could send someone a message at the very beginning of their journey of kind of conscious evolution, where
Hmm.
they're starting to step into it in a little bit more intentional way, what would you say to them?
Good question. Oh, um, well, apart from good luck, no, I'm kidding. No, you know what? I'd say at the start of the journey, look, you do not need to know the whole path. It's
Mm,
just try and take the next honest step, like one day at a time, like 1 minute at a time, even. Like, I came from like 2020 having full blown panic attacks. I was so misaligned, with myself. And it's like it kind of this work, you kind of rebuilding yourself sometimes from scratch in some
mm,
respect.
mhm.
So even if you're like all you're doing in this moment is like crying on the floor and saying, you know what, I'm ready, universe. That's like literally more than enough, because once you kind of give yourself over, the universe is going to meet you there. Um, And I'd probably just say to people, especially if they're feeling disconnected or they're not even sure they're disconnected, but just to remind them that actually they're way more held than they might know right now.
Mm.
I think I'd say that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful reminder. Thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. I know you got lots going on, and I appreciate you taking the time. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a
I know.
while.
Yeah, you're
Um,
looking great. You seem really happy. It's good.
oh, thank you. I am doing well. Thank you. I
Good.
appreciate that.
No. Well, thank you
Yeah,
for having me
maybe.
on, Joel. Honestly, I'm really excited to hear the rest of your talks. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, maybe one day we can have another one. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah.